It's Thursday the 6th of May from the Channel M newsroom. This is the Lunchtime News and these are today's headlines. Leading the way, Greater Manchester will try out ID cards before anywhere else.
We're starting in Manchester because we wanted to focus on one geographic area, make sure we got the technology and the processes right before we tried to do it nationally.
Also coming up, the Christie's missing millions. Campaigners have a final push this lunchtime to get the money back.
People of Manchester have been supporting us for over 100 years and they have done us proud these last couple of months. They have spoken and we hope that Downing Street will listen.
And the soldiers who could lose their jobs as the latest victims of the recession.
The implications of what was announced very quietly in Parliament last Tuesday, I believe it was, are that a number of territorial units are now going to be disbanded.
Good afternoon. First today, claiming benefits, opening bank accounts, proving your age, all things that need us to show we are who we say we are. The government's decided that people here in Greater Manchester should be the first to try out a new way of doing just that. Controversial new ID cards will be available to volunteers in our area this autumn before anywhere else. Beverly Walkden has our top story.
Voluntary ID cards will be available on a new website and the government hopes it will have handed out 75,000 by November.
We're starting in Manchester because we wanted to focus on one geographic area, make sure we got the technology and the processes right before we tried to do it nationally. We wanted an area that was a metropolitan area that had a large young population, because we think the cards will be particularly interesting to young people, where there's a fair diversity of population and where there's a broad base of support, and we felt that Manchester met all of those criteria.
But who and why should people apply for them?
It's another form of identification, innit? And at the moment I don't got no form of identification, so I could do with some form of identification because my passport is expired.
Already the ID card concept has been rejected by airline pilots at Manchester Airport and they've vowed to issue a legal challenge against the Home Office. Campaigners say they're right to do so.
They're not really explaining an awful lot of the facts behind the ID card scheme. They're presenting it as merely a convenience, merely something which is equivalent to a passport or equivalent to an ID card in another European country. What they're not talking about is the database behind the ID card scheme, which is the most comprehensive and intrusive of certainly any European government and almost any government in the world.
I don't particularly want one myself.
Why?
Because I don't want information stored on me and everyone to know everything about me.
The government wants other cities to follow in Manchester's footsteps by 2012. So anyone over 16 and who holds a passport will be able to apply for a voluntary ID card in just over 3 years' time. Between now and then, though, just a small number of volunteers will be testing to see how the card works. Beverly Walkden for Channel M News.
Thanks, Beverly. Well, staying with this story now, I'm joined by Councillor Faraz Bhatti from Whalley Range. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. First of all, what do you make of the area being chosen to try out this?
I mean, the thing is, it's a classic example, again, Manchester being chosen as a guinea pig of the whole country. I mean, we've already seen it with the super casino bid, or failed super casino bid rather, and the disaster congestion charge. And to me, I don't know how long government is going to carry on pushing us, the people of Manchester, into making these kind of, I would say, very sort of pushing on decisions on our heads, which we don't really want. And I think it's a very disastrous idea because ID cards would be carrying something like 30 personal data of individuals on this card, and that we are actually leaving it open to the fraudsters to doing whatever they want.
The Home Secretary, Jackie Smith, she said that the system will help to tackle terrorism and that it's good for Greater Manchester to be chosen to trial this. Do you not think that the area could enjoy some benefits if it gets used to the system before the rest of the country?
Well, I mean, the thing is, at the moment, if you look at if you ask many of the security officers in this city or the taxi drivers in this city, they are already carrying an additional piece of ID with them. So many office staffs are, including Manchester City Council and many others, including where we are standing in. I mean, don't you think it would be not very sensible and logical to be giving them another ID on their head, and at the same time risk of them losing that data to fraudsters to be too vulnerable with? And I don't truly believe that this will benefit Manchester in any way, shape or form, because this ID card is not a compulsory part of ID for them to produce.
What would you like the government to be doing instead?
Well, to be realistically honest, instead of putting on this pressure on the people of Manchester, they should be pumping into Manchester's economy to help benefit, to lift people out of the benefits and into working lives. And coming out with gimmicks over gimmicks over gimmicks and punishing people of Manchester with type of charges that they don't really want is, I don't think any Mancunian will welcome.
OK, Firas Bhatti, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll have more on this story later in the programme as well, when we'll be looking at exactly what these cards can do and how they'll work. More of today's top stories now, and 3 of Sir Alex Ferguson's close relatives are in hospital after a car crash. Nadine Ferguson, who's the estranged wife of the United manager's son Darren, is being treated along with the couple's 6-year-old daughter Grace and her 10-year-old son Charlie from a previous relationship. He's needed surgery for his injuries. Firefighters had to free them from the wreckage of their Vauxhall Corsa near their home in Cheshire yesterday morning after it collided with another car. Middlesbrough Football Club's appealing against a £4.5 million damages award after one of its players ended the career of a promising young Manchester United star. Borough's Gary Smith broke Ben Collett's right leg in 2 places with a high tackle during a reserves game 6 years ago. The player, who's now 23, has since been unable to get back to the standard necessary to be a professional and has retired from the game. A man's been charged with attacking a police community support officer in Bury. 24-year-old Liam Crawford from Radcliffe's accused of causing actual bodily harm. It's after a PCSO reported having a bicycle ridden into him as he tried to stop and check the bike back in March. A man riding a motorbike has been killed in a crash in Oldham. He'd been involved in a collision with another bike and a car on Ripondon Road yesterday evening and was pronounced dead at the scene. The other motorbike rider suffered minor leg injuries. The driver of the car has been arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving and has been released on bail. Researchers say the high street could soon start recovering from the recession. A report's out claiming consumer confidence is increasing at its fastest rate for 2 years. But with a third of shops lying empty in Rochdale, Ben Bland has been to find out if people there think the economy will be better or worse off in 6 months' time.
Worse.
What makes you say worse?
Because I think people are not telling the proper truth.
Worse, I would think.
Why do you say worse?
Because there's no signs of any recovery and this government don't seem to be doing a lot about it.
Slightly better, probably.
What makes you say better?
Well, my shares are going up, I know that, so I'm hoping that they won't go down again.
Worse.
What makes you say worse?
Because I don't see how they can get out of this, whatever we're in. No, I don't see how it's going to work.
I think it'd be in a slightly better shape 6 months from now. I think we might see a plateau then, and then possibly in 2 years' time get a full recovery.
Well, that, as another report just out, says we're in for the worst recession since the 1930s, and unemployment could hit 10%. One financial expert's been explaining why these 2 reports apparently contradict each other.
Well, one of them is historic looking and the other one is forward looking. So I think consumers, they've seen that the governments, not only in the UK but throughout the world, are pouring lots of money into the economy. The banks are slowly getting rid of their toxic debt, and therefore potentially, once all these problems have been addressed, we can then start to look forward to economic growth in the shape of there'll be more government spending. Hopefully the governments are going to invest in new infrastructures, new schools, new hospitals, and that is going to attract people back to work.
A survey just out reckons most first-time buyers think now's the time to get onto the property ladder, believing the bottom of the slump has been reached. Around 57% have told researchers they expect prices to stay the same or increase during the coming 12 months, and 69% think it is a good time to buy. Big changes to child protection services are being announced. It's already been announced that some members of the public will be put on local panels in charge of young people's welfare. The government's had to draw up new guidelines after a report said improvements suggested 8 years ago after the death of Victoria Colombier weren't put in place. A rally is taking place right now by campaigners fighting to get £6.5 million of charity cash handed back to the Christie. It was lost when the Icelandic bank it was held in collapsed. Much of it was raised by cancer patients and their friends and families. And campaigners will take a petition to Downing Street tomorrow to try to get the government to step in.
Well, you may remember on the 11th of March, the Manchester Evening News launched a campaign to get you to sign a petition to encourage the government to intervene and get the money back. Well, so far, Alethea, the target was around 100,000. What are we on?
We are on 100,000. We're absolutely delighted. In 2 months, 100,000 people have signed the petition. Fantastic.
I mean, it just goes to show the level of support that the Christie has here in Manchester, doesn't it?
The people of Manchester have been supporting us for over 100 years, and they have done us proud these last couple of months. They have spoken, and we hope that Downing Street will listen.
And what would you say to people who've taken the time to sign the sheets and send them into the Manchester Evening News, or taken the time to sign your sheets here?
We've been humbled, we've been overwhelmed, we've been moved by the support. It's been absolutely fantastic. We know people support us, but really they have absolutely gone that extra mile. And the most important thing is it is for the Christie, but it's actually for cancer patients. This is all about local cancer patients, and people care. Everybody's been touched by cancer. And as we said, this is people power at its absolute best.
And we've seen some incredible campaigning, haven't we, over the last couple of months?
The campaigning has been incredible. It's been as passionate and determined as our fundraisers were to raise that £6.5 million, which we are determined that we will get back no matter what.
And today represents the final push before the petition's taken to Downing Street tomorrow. Tell us a bit about what's happening at Piccadilly.
Today at Piccadilly there is going to be a rally at lunchtime. We are going to have fundraisers, patients, charity supporters, representatives, a London bus to show that we are on our way to Downing Street tomorrow to deliver that petition. We will be loud, we will be proud, we want people to come and support us, and it's really a farewell and a thank you to Manchester before we go down to London tomorrow.
Well, the best of luck with that. Thank you, Alethea. Well, as she said, that starts around lunchtime, and you're more than welcome to turn up, get your name down and make sure it's on the petition when it arrives at Downing Street. Back to you.
Thanks, Nina. Soldiers at a barracks here in Manchester have been told their jobs could be under threat. The recession is being blamed for the possible cuts. With more on this, here's Kevin Duffy.
Territorial Army soldiers, or the TA, have served in countless major conflicts: Korea, the Balkans, Iraq and Afghanistan. But now they're fighting a battle on the home front after the government announced a review of the Territorial Army.
42 Squadron has been here since 1908. The implications of what was announced very quietly in Parliament last Tuesday, I believe it was, are that a number of territorial units are now going to be disbanded. As we've already said, they perform a very, very much needed backup to the regular forces.
And they run the same risks as full-time soldiers. That fact was highlighted recently in Afghanistan when a bullet slammed through the helmet of electrician and TA soldier Private Leon Wilson, missing his head by fractions of an inch.
I personally would say if it wasn't for the Territorial Army, the British Army could not meet its commitments.
At the Rusholme barracks, 10 permanent and 70 part-time posts are at risk. The implications for the 42 North West Brigade were being spelled out last night by Regional Army Chief Brigadier Bill Aldridge.
Every unit will now have to put a case together for survival, I would suspect, and things like that will be taking place at a higher level than I actually have any information on at the moment.
In a statement, a Ministry of Defence spokesman said that no final decision had been taken over 42 North West Brigade, but efforts would be made to find new roles if any of the 80 people there were affected. Kevin Duffy for Channel M News.
Sport now, and a look back at a great night for Manchester United fans. Here's Ian Irving.
Thanks, James. Well, it was a good night for United fans, but unfortunately it wasn't a great night for Darren Fletcher. And he's heard now that his red card will definitely not be overturned, so he will definitely miss the European Cup final in Rome. The midfielder was wrongly sent off by referee Roberto Rossetti for a tackle on Cesc Fabregas, which led to Arsenal's consolation, a Robin van Persie penalty. It was a one-sided game in truth. United leading 1-0 from the first leg effectively ended the match inside 11 minutes, thanks to goals from Ji-sung Park and Cristiano Ronaldo, who added a third on the hour mark to ensure an easy passage to the final in 3 weeks' time. There was also some football action a little closer to home last night, with Bolton reserves and Blackburn reserves facing each other in the semi-final of the Lancashire Cup.
What can they make of it. Short. Maybe just looking to dick it over the goalkeeper, and he does superbly. Obadiah here, Campbell just telling him where he wants it. I'm going to go on his own here. He's still got it. Obadiah, brilliant solo goal. Swung in, glancing flick. Blackburn have their goal. Tracy goes for goal. Oh, and it's kept out just. And it is in the back of the net. From Marshall, the substitute. Here he comes. Bolton score. Bolton win it. And they will play Manchester United in the final. Blakeman, brilliant penalty. They've made hard work of it tonight.
On to cricket now, and the first test between England and the West Indies got underway a short time ago. The West Indies won the toss and put England into bat, and the hosts are currently 52 for 1. Well, England will be hoping for a change of luck today, as they haven't won any of their first tests of any series in their previous 14 attempts. Meanwhile, Lancashire have made a great start to their county championship match with Worcestershire. The latest score we have from New Road is that the home side are 43 for 4. Glenn Chappell taking 3 of those wickets. And staying with Lancashire, Chief Executive Jim Coombs has been speaking to us about just how good a job head coach Peter Moores is doing.
We were very serious about wanting a coach to succeed Mike Watkins, because Mike's job had become so stretched. He was doing so much, and moving him up to cricket director, then we realised we wanted a top quality coach. And to be honest, there were some real top quality applicants as well. And we were very serious about the interviews, and they were rigorous, they were very rigorous, I have to say. I think, in fact, Peter was quite surprised as to how rigorous they were. But, I mean, he clearly was the man for the job. I think everybody felt that at the time when we'd interviewed him.
The English Rugby Union have confirmed they will bid for the 2015 World Cup, with Old Trafford a potential venue. And Sale Sharks boss Kingsley Jones has added his former Wales teammate Byron Hayward to his backroom staff. He'll become their new kicking, conditioning and strategy coach. Blackburn boss Sam Allardyce is believed to be preparing to offer to rescue Joey Barton from his Newcastle nightmare and attempt to lure him to Ewood Park. As you may recall, Allardyce was the man who originally signed Barton for Newcastle. Well, that's all you sport for now. There'll be more from me at 5 o'clock, but back to James now. We'll tell you what's coming up on the rest of the programme.
Ian, thank you very much. Still ahead on Wednesday's programme, more on Greater Manchester being picked to trial the new ID cards, and if you're a fan of very hot food, details of a chilli that could be just what you're looking for.
The chilli that we've come up with is using Scotch bonnet chilies, which are extremely hot. They're the world's 3rd hottest chilli. But what I've tried to do is I've tried to hold back the heat, so you do get some flavour from the actual chilli. It's not just a case of you burning your mouth off.
This is the Lunchtime News here on Channel M. Welcome back. A quick reminder about our website, channelm.co.uk. Log on to see this programme again or watch any of our other reports, including a tribute to a toddler who's lost his fight for life after being born with several organs outside his body, and the school taking pupils to see for some special lessons. That's at channelm.co.uk. Now back to our main headline, the decision to use Greater Manchester to try out the new controversial ID cards. From the autumn, people here will be able to volunteer to take part in a trial of the new system before it's rolled out nationwide. Shops and post offices will be used to take photos and fingerprints for them. Our reporter Beverly Walkden's been looking at what the system would entail.
This is how voluntary ID cards will look. Mancunians will be the first in the country to be able to apply for the cards online at a cost of £30 from this autumn. Home Secretary Jackie Smith was in Manchester to defend the scheme amid criticism from backbenchers that the £650 million scheme is too costly when other key services are being cut in the recession.
The opportunity to see the benefits of ID cards, that's a safe and secure and convenient way to prove your identity, and it's also being confident, if I've got an ID card, that somebody else isn't able to use my identity either to defraud me or to use it perhaps for carrying out serious crime or even terrorism.
It'll contain details of fingerprints and a biometric facial scan, as well as a standard photograph. The card could be used instead of or alongside the new biometric passports. Details will be stored on a national identity register, as well as on an electric chip on the card itself. The government says the cards will tackle identity fraud, illegal immigration and terrorism. The government's in talks with post offices and pharmacies so that people can go along there and have their fingerprints taken and faces scanned while they're out and about shopping. And how we here in Greater Manchester react to the scheme will give the government a flavour of the support or opposition before its intended rollout in just over 3 years' time. Beverly Walkden for Channel M News.
Researchers say binge drinking among women has almost doubled in recent years. A study has found 1 in 6 regularly get through more than double the recommended daily amount of 3 units. There's also been a steady increase in alcohol consumption among those who are middle-aged and older. American health officials have confirmed the second swine flu victim to die outside Mexico was a 33-year-old teacher who'd recently given birth. Here, students at schools that have shut because of the virus may be told they don't have to sit their exams. Emergency plans are being drawn up in case they have to miss taking their GCSEs and A-levels. A so-called swine flu czar has also been appointed. Ian Dalton, who currently heads up NHS North East, has been chosen as the National Director for NHS Flu Resilience. A man has had his hearing aid stolen during a robbery in Bury. The 68-year-old was attacked on Topping Street by 3 men who grabbed his collar and demanded he hand some property over. When he refused, they went through his pockets, took his watch and ripped off his hearing aid. Police have described it as an horrendous attack. The UK's hottest chilli has been unleashed on Greater Manchester. It's been cooked up by a new restaurant at the Printworks to mark the Mexican festival of Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo is a national celebration in Mexico. It celebrates the battle between French and Mexican forces. The Mexican forces they actually won the battle. So what we've done at the Printworks is just to mark that day is we've come up with a chilli that's extremely hot. We're titled it the UK's hottest chilli. The chilli that we've come up with is using Scotch bonnet chilies, which are extremely hot. They're the world's 3rd hottest chilli. But what I've tried to do is I've tried to hold back the heat. So you do get some flavour from the actual chilli. It's not just a case of you burning your mouth off, so there is some actual flavour there. So there is the tomatoes and the beef coming through. Then we've put sweet corn in it. That I've used baked beans as well as kidney beans, Heinz baked beans. So I've used those as well as using those. I find that it just gives it a bit of it gives it a nice texture. It's a Mexican Manchester dish. It's manchicum.
Well, after a very cloudy start with some rain around, let's find out how the afternoon is looking now. With those details, here's Michelle Eagleton.
Well, we did have an awful lot of rain this morning, but this afternoon it is going to clear up somewhat. We're expecting a dry and bright afternoon and evening with highs of around 15 and 16 degrees across Greater Manchester. Cool down to about 7 degrees overnight, so a mild night is expected. But what can we expect the next couple of days? Well, I can tell you that tomorrow, really mixed bag for you. You are going to need an umbrella, but there's also going to be a bit of sunshine in there as well, so not all doom and gloom for your Thursday. Friday is looking very wet indeed, and then Saturday and Sunday, a bit of a wet washout.
This is Channel M, our top stories. Greater Manchester has been chosen to try out ID cards before anywhere else in the country. They'll be available to volunteers from the autumn, but critics say the area is being used like a guinea pig. 3 of Sir Alex Ferguson's close relatives have been hurt in a car crash. The estranged wife of his son Darren is being treated in hospital, as well as her 2 children. They were travelling near their home in Cheshire when the accident happened. And campaigners are staging a final push to get support for the Christie to be handed back its missing millions. The charity cash was lost when the Icelandic bank it was held in collapsed. Those are today's headlines, and that was the Lunchtime News. We'll have much more on all those stories in our early evening news with Andy Crane from 5 o'clock tonight. But from me and all the Lunchtime team, have a good afternoon. Bye-bye for now.